David didn't lose his calling when he fell. He actually learned what it was. And if you've ever wondered if one bad year erased what you were meant to become, it didn't. This episode is for you.
This is the story of how my dad saved his life. And now, he's fighting every day to save what matters most. His family, his music, and his soul. He's not doing this for fame. He's doing it to prove who he really is. The original punk and roll outlaw, fighting to stay sober, stay strong, and stay standing. This is more than a podcast. This is a war for redemption. This is the story of my dad. Welcome to Louder Than My Demons.
Now listen, David wasn't confused. He was complex. He was a worshiper and he was a warrior. He was a songwriter and a fighter. He didn't worship to escape the battle. He worshiped before it. David didn't wait until he was perfect to be called. He was called while he was human. And when he fell publicly and painfully, the calling didn't disappear. It got refined. This episode today isn't about being flawless, because none of us are. It's about being honest. It's about strength with restraint. It's about spirit with discipline. A crown can fall without killing the king.
Okay, so I want to welcome you to episode 12 of Louder Than My Demons, my live war journal about sobriety. This week I'm going to talk about David, and I wanted to talk about gratitude first. And I want to let everybody know I'm very grateful for my family and friends this holiday season. I know that they knew it was going to be rough on me because of everything that happened last year, and that I felt a tremendous amount of loss going into the holidays, and they were there for me. And there's a lot of other reasons that I have to worry about things, and yet they stood by me, backed me up, and took care of me. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. I am grateful for my band. We have a couple new singles coming out on my birthday, which you'll probably be watching this right about the time of my birthday. And we have a new single coming out called Ghost. We also have a new single coming out in 2 weeks called Devil's Gonna Win. We'll have videos for both. They're going to be available anywhere that you want to listen. Also, 2024's best hard rock heavy metal EP release on Metal Devastation Radio, Being Number 2 Sucks, will be out in its entirety online. Those will be the last 2 songs off the album. You'll be able to get that, download the whole album anywhere that you want after that. Also, if you want to buy it, you can go to Bandcamp and buy it. You can go onto our website, thecorruptionakron.com, and you can buy it as well. We have merch on there. We have all kinds of cool stuff. We are going to start a corruption podcast in January. I don't know when, where, or what, but I've been talking to the guys about it, and we've talked about it different times, and I've decided that I'm going to put together a plan for one. So we're going to do that. Now, I'm grateful that this is a new year and that last year is gone and behind me. I'm grateful that 2024 is in the rear view. I'm grateful that the chaos is out of my life. There are a lot of things I want to talk about that I'm not going to talk about now, and they will be talked about soon. I have said it and I've teased it, and I don't mean to do it as a teaser. I just, as soon as I think it's time to tell everything and tell my side of everything, just to clear my head, I realize I need to wait a little bit longer. We still have some more to deal with. So I'm going to wait. This is episode 12. I have episode 13 already done. It will be out. Also, it's kind of a smaller, different version of an episode. It's not really shorter, but it's a different version of an episode. That will be out on the same day that I release this. Also, episode 14 will probably be out that day, if not the following Monday. And that will be the end of season 1 of Louder Than My Demons. And then I'll start working on season 2. I'll still be recording in January, but I won't be releasing anything. And I'll talk more about this in episode 14, so I digress. Let's get to the most written about human in the Bible, and one of the most written about humans ever in the world. There are more psalms attributed to this man than anyone else. His story includes victory, betrayal, exile, lust, murder, and repentance. God called him a man after my own heart after he fell. I'm talking about David. We all know the story of David. We all know the story of him and Goliath. I'm not going to get into that as much as some of the other stuff. I'm reading a really good book right now called David and Goliath. It's by Malcolm Gladwell, and it's awesome. But like everybody else, I've known the story of David my whole life. I grew up hearing it. I thought that I understood it. But this year it hit different. Not when things were good. When was the last time things were good? Not when life felt stable. If you've watched this podcast more than 5 minutes, you know that my year has not been stable. And not when I felt confident or secure. Now, the only thing I do feel is confidence. But secure, no way. And even my confidence, I was talking to a friend about that the other day. My confidence is different now. It's a quiet confidence. At least until Saturday when we play my birthday party. By the time you see this, the birthday party will probably have happened. I'll have some video or some pictures and stuff for that. I'll probably add that in to social media and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we're playing a big birthday party with 3 stars. It's going to be awesome. So confident as far as that goes. Confident as far as my songwriting goes. Confident as far as my body goes right now. Confident as far as I know that I'm a good person. I know that I have turned my life around. Whatever you think might have happened, I understand why you feel that way. Whatever side you've heard, whatever noise you've heard, whatever ramblings you have read, just know this: the person that rented this house and lived in this house December 28th of 2024 may still reside here only in name. I am not the same person that I was. Do I have some remnants of that person? Yeah. I love music. I love my family. I love the Browns. I love WWE. Vince and I were talking about WWE. I fit your name in again, Vince. I still have many of the same loves and desires and needs that I had before. But that person has changed so much that it's part of me feels like it's unrecognizable. When I talk about stuff like David and talk about praying and talk about religion, as I've said before, I'm not trying to make it like, oh my God, you have to feel this way and you have to be. I'm not one of those fanatics that wants you to absorb it. I'm just telling you how I feel, right? I've always believed in God or talked to God, not to the level that I do now, and that's because of my son. He turned me on to how to do it right. And he pointed out this year when things were being handled by God that I would have never thought about before. So David hit me different this year because I'm looking at life in a different way. He didn't show up for me in victory. He showed up for me after my fall, much like God showed up for him after his fall. He showed up for me after my identity cracked, after my reputation took a hit, after I was standing in the aftermath, looking around, wondering what's left and what still belongs to me besides these guitars. What still belongs to me. This year, I didn't need a hero. I needed a man who fell and then didn't disappear. The thing I like about David is he isn't sanitized, he's documented. This is what happened to him. You can't deny it. This is written about him. He wrote about it himself. He did it himself. People talked about it and still talk about it. Now, I'm not on any kind of level like David, but the same thing is going on with me. I am not sanitized. I am not coming to you and telling you lies and hiding behind anything. I don't know anybody in my life that's ever opened and exposed themselves to the level that I have since I started this podcast. And some people hate that. And some people hate me even more because I'm being honest about what happened to me. And I'm going to be even more honest about it in the future, but I'm being more honest about what I'm going through now. To me, that's what matters. What happened before matters, but not like what happens in the future. And not like what's happened this year. Or, well, now last year, 2024, 5. And not what happened last year, 2025, but what's going to happen in 2026, 2027, and down the line. I've got to live long enough to be around for my daughter and for my son and to have grandchildren and to meet somebody who treats me the way that I want to be treated. Yep. That's what matters to me. David isn't inspiring because he won, even though he did win. He's inspiring because he survived himself, much like I'm trying to do right now. He was chosen early, tested privately, exposed publicly, and refined painfully. That arc, that is what I recognize from 2025. All of that on my level. I've said before, I'm a Timu Nikki 6. Maybe I'm a Timu David also. On my level, these things affected me this year. And by reading about David and seeing how he reacted to these things, it's given me an inspiration on how to react to situations. It's helped me keep my mouth shut about things that I want to keep my mouth shut for right now. It's helped me not lash out. It's helped me stay sober. It's humbled me. It has helped to refine, rebuild, and redeem me. And I recognize all that. If David lived today, much like many of you want to do to me, he'd be canceled. He was not some perfect angel. He was a flawed man, fraught with emotion, full of venom, one of the greatest fighters of all time. And not just because he beat Goliath, but the wars that he fought for Saul were huge. And he was one of the most dominant fighters of all time. Now, David started off, though, we talked about that. He started off as a shepherd in Bethlehem. He was the youngest son. He was overlooked, left alone with sheep, while everyone else was doing something cool or what seemed more important than what he was doing. And that matters because that's where he learned discipline. That's where he learned music. That's where he learned how to protect what's been entrusted to him. In that case, the sheep. He's fighting lions. He's fighting bears with a slingshot. No wonder he could take out David or Goliath with that. It's what he did when he was by himself, and he was growing, and he was preparing that's most impressive to me. He didn't become brave on the battlefield. He became competent while in obscurity. Nobody claps for that part. Nobody celebrates repetition. Rarely do we recognize discipline. Nobody applauds preparation. But that's when strength is built. And I'll tell you something. This year taught me many of these lessons. The quiet work that I did at the beginning of the year, the daily discipline that I've tried in some way or another to use. Still, the stuff that nobody sees. Even if I talk about it on here, you really don't see the work that I'm putting into this. It's not something that I share with everybody. I share how I'm doing it, but I don't share what I'm doing every single day. And you know what? That quiet work, discipline, is where survival actually happens. You know, when you think back to it, shepherding was a low status job done in obscurity, like I said. It's often given to the youngest, and in this case, the least valued son. Yes, it's an important job. You have to keep your sheep safe. But there's nothing glamorous about being a shepherd. David fought lions and bears alone, like I said. That's in 1 Samuel 17, 34 through 36. He learned how to play the harp during this time because he was by himself and he had to entertain himself. And that's when he learned music, songwriting. Keep that in mind, right? Those are the things that kept him sane when he was out there on his own. Now, David was anointed king by the prophet Samuel. And this was while Saul was still on the throne. And then nothing happens. No promotion, no fast track, no explanation. David went right back to the field. Now that's promise without position. It's a calling without control. Knowing who you are without being able to prove it. Again, something that I know that feeling. And that space right there, that waiting, that's where most people quit. And that's where I refuse to quit. And that's why David means so much to me. Now, David was anointed around the age of 15 to 17. But he didn't become king until he was 30. He waited about 15 years until he was crowned after his calling. Can you imagine having to wait that long? People think you're nobody, you're just a shepherd, but you know what's going to happen someday? His family probably didn't even believe it. Nobody believed it, except Samuel. This is where we realize that being anointed does not mean you're appointed. You're anointed like this is the man who's going to be the king. Then you wait until he's ready, if he's ever ready. And promise does not equal timing, because calling doesn't excuse impatience. You have to be patient. You have to wait. Waiting is something that I've learned this year is one of the hardest things in the world. You wait for a trial. You wait for things to happen, and things happen wrong, and you have to wait for them to get fixed. And then you have to wait so that I can see my daughter. You have to wait so that I can do these different things. But that's my fault. This part wasn't David's fault. Later, he has a lot of problems and a lot of faults, but this part where he's training, that wasn't, his fault that he had to wait that long. He just had to wait. Now, when David finally gets to face Goliath, it's not because he's fearless. It's because he's prepared. One of the things people say is that Goliath was 9, 10 feet tall. I'm listening to a book, David versus Goliath, by Malcolm Gladwell, I believe the name is. And he said that Goliath was a giant, but that he was probably about 6'9", which back then would have been huge. Nowadays, that's huge. But back then, that would have been about as big as you can imagine. And because of the armor he wore, he looked even bigger. He could barely move. One of the things that Malcolm said was Goliath had some sort of disease where he could barely see. And so he had to be led onto the battlefield. He didn't see David until it was too late, and David was on top of him. So Goliath was not this immovable object who was this great, amazing fighter. He could swing a sword, and he had big armor. Now, you also have to remember that a sling can throw stones up to 100 miles an hour. And if this guy couldn't see him, then there's no wonder that David hit him in the head with this, because the only area that was unprotected was his head. Saul tried to put his armor on David, but it didn't fit, so David refused it. He used the weapon he trained with in obscurity, that sling, slung that stone at him, hit him in the head. When he fell down, he took his own sword and cut his head off. Now, people called it luck, but what they didn't do was they didn't watch him train. They didn't know that he'd fought bears before, that he'd fought lions and done the same kind of thing with them. And that line alone, that people call it luck when they didn't watch you train, that could have saved me years earlier in my life. After this, David serves Saul. He plays music for him on his harp. He fights for him. Nobody fought as good as David, and nobody fought as often as David in the Bible. He was one of the greatest warriors in the Bible, and this is where the term warrior worshiper comes into effect. And we'll talk about that a little bit later also. Another great book that I read by Stephen Holt. I didn't agree with everything that he talked about in the book, but the stories about David were on point, and that's what got me motivated onto David this year. I read that when I was in county jail in Medina, and it was just a quality book. The thing with David was, as he rose, Saul unraveled. His admiration turned into jealousy, and his jealousy turned into threat. And that's because he knew that David was the anointed one. So Saul tried to kill David. How many times did this happen in the Bible? And he did it more than once. And that's something else that I learned this year. Not everyone who benefits from you is rooting for you. Something else that I learned this year was that sometimes your growth threatens people who once applauded you. So now this time David runs because Saul's tried to kill him so many times. He lives in caves, in the wilderness. He's always watching his back. And the men who gather around him, they aren't heroes. They're distressed, indebted, discontented. David didn't gather the best. He gathered the broken. That's leadership forged outside the system. That's not polished, not safe, but real. David hid in the cave of Adullam, and during this time, that's where his leadership with the broken started. His loyalty was forged through this hardship. And the cave is where his identity and the men's identity was stripped and then rebuilt. Eventually, after years of exile and loss, David becomes king. First over Judah, then over all of Israel. And this part matters. The crown comes after exile, not before. God breaks his leaders, then rewards them with leadership. If you're being broken right now, perhaps you're just being prepared for when your real time comes. And when it's time for you to step up and take care of what needs taken care of. The crown didn't make David strong. He was already strong when he became king. Surviving without it in that interim is what did it. That's a hard truth, but it's an honest one. After this, David fell, and he fell hard. And these details matter. The woman was Bathsheba. She wasn't free. She was married. She was married to Uriah the Hittite, one of David's own warriors, a loyal man. He was a foreigner, but he was more loyal than David turned out to be. He was a disciplined man. Kings were supposed to be at war, but for some reason, David stayed home. He didn't fall in battle. What he did was fall in comfort. How many of us have done that? Yeah, all of us. He didn't lose his strength. He simply lost his restraint. And strength without restraint collapses. Now, that's the danger here. When you have strength and you have power, but you don't use restraint, things fall apart. It destroys everything that it builds when you don't use restraint. Uriah refused comfort while others were still fighting. He would sleep outside instead of going home. That is fucking discipline. And discipline protects what strength builds. I learned that lesson the hard way this year. Later, David is confronted, and to his credit, he confesses. He's forgiven, because that's what happens when you forgive, when you ask for forgiveness. But the forgiveness didn't erase the consequences. As a result, his household fractures. His son rebels, and David flees again, this time not as a shepherd, but as a king who knows his limits. David doesn't come back louder. He comes back deeper, wiser, slower, more honest. Still a warrior, still a worshiper, just no longer pretending. And that's the David I needed this year. When I talk about the 5 S's, I can talk about David and how he relates to the 5 S's. Because while nobody talks about in the Bible whether David drank or not, whether he was sober or not, but sobriety is not just about alcohol or drugs or something like that. Sobriety is about clarity. David fasted. He waited. He practiced restraint most of his life, minus the incident with Bathsheba and a few other women. He practiced restraint. Because clarity beats numbness every single time. And we all know that's something that I've learned this year. I'm still learning and still working on. Spirituality. David didn't just perform faith. He wrestled with it, which I have done. He wrestled with rage, with fear, with gratitude, and always a sense of confusion. He didn't pray pretty. Remember earlier in the year I talked about that a lot of my prayers start with the word what the fuck, or the phrase what the fuck? Or come on, man. That's because I've learned how to pray in turmoil, in trauma, not at my best. So when I do pray, I'm just talking. Hopefully God's listening. It seems that he is. But it makes me feel better either way. And because he didn't pray pretty, and because he prayed honest, that gave me permission to do the same. Then when you talk about self-care, he learned endurance from shepherding. Physical readiness always matters. He trained. You know, David questioned God openly. Throughout everything that he dealt with, he would always wonder why God was doing this to him, or what God expected from him, or what could he do to help himself and to make himself better in God's eyes. Even though God said, that's the man after my own heart when he talked about David. Does that mean that people like myself who are struggling with their life and with their identity and with their reputation and with being alive and with how to live their life properly, does that mean that we're God's favorites? I don't know. Does it feel like it this year? No, it doesn't. But the Bible constantly reminds me that that's what it's about. That God loves the broken. Now, for David, self-care and strength go hand in hand. He trained. A shepherd life was endurance and awareness were required. He trained his body so that it steadied his mind. That's not theory, that's survival. That's something that I've tried to do this year. You meditate, you work out, it helps your body, it helps your mind. They work hand in hand. When you do them properly, they go like, hand in hand like this. Strength for David wasn't rage. It was resolve. It was discipline. It was consistency. It was showing up again and again and again, even when it was quiet. And of course, I talked earlier about how David was a songwriter and a musician, and he wrote psalms, and some of his psalms were songs that he wrote. And he wrote a lot of music, and he played harp, and he played it for Saul in the courtroom or in the court. And he did everything he did had music involved in it, much like what I've always done. Music has been a part of anything that I'm doing. And he processed his life through music. The Psalms, while they weren't sermons, they were survival journals. Like these episodes are my survival journals. And that's why Louder Than My Demons exists. I do the same thing. I have turned chaos away and turned it into sound. Now, David mattered to me this year because he proves something simple. You can fall and still rise. You can fail and still lead. You can be broken, yet still be called. That truth that is often skipped by people about David carried me this year. And if you're here listening with me, it might be able to carry you too. Now, I heard a phrase this year, blood-stained allies. It was a great book I read by Steve Holt, and it was about David and how he is a warrior worshiper. But it grew into something bigger for me because I feel strength doesn't belong to one gender or one personality or one belief system, and so I call it the unbroken. Same basic philosophy with a few twists. It's not perfect people. It's not tough guys. Just people who fell, who learned, and then stood back up. David didn't rise alone. He rose with outcasts. He rose with broken people, people who stayed, people no one else wanted, people like me. I'm not launching anything today. I'm just naming it. It's going to happen. Look for it. In January, while I prepare season 2, we're going to start building the unbroken together. Okay, so welcome to Beyond the Songs. On this section, we always like to talk about a song I'm going to play. I tell you a little bit about why it fits with this episode or just what I like about this particular song. This week, I looked around and I found what I think is the perfect song for this episode. It's actually a rock song, pop rock song by the band U2, who I really enjoy that band. And they mean a lot to me. I respect the way that they move with purpose. They got famous, they got rich as fuck, and they started doing good in the world. And they got together and they talked about that, and they have stayed together, and they have worked together to make the world a better place than when they found it. And, you know, it's almost impossible to do some things, but Bono's accomplished a lot of things. And Edge is a silent strength that's always been there for Bono and for the rest of the guys. And I just really enjoy that band. And at some point, I'm going to do a Demon Cuts about U2. I'm not sure which album yet, but I'm definitely going to do one because their music has been huge for me this year, or in this past year and a half. And I like them. And I really enjoy this song. This song is called 40, and they close every one of their shows with this song. And it's very emotional. It is literally built on David's words from Psalm 40. It's a psalm David wrote while he was waiting, not winning. And one of the key lyrics, I'm going to go through some of the key lyrics, kind of tell you a little bit about them. I'm going to do it a little bit different this week. One of the key lyrics, the first one is, I waited patiently for the Lord. And that line right there, I waited patiently, that's not poetic language, that's survival language. David didn't write that from a throne. He wrote it from the in-between. And this year, for me, wasn't about getting what I wanted.
I never got what I wanted. I lost what I wanted. But I got what I needed. And I learned how to wait without breaking. And I'm still waiting. Another key lyric, the next key lyric is he inclined and heard my cry. And this isn't victory talk. This is desperation talk. David was not saying, or nor was Bono saying, everything worked out. He is saying someone finally heard him. There were enough moments this year in my life where being heard was just enough. I didn't need answers. I needed presence. And whether that presence came from God, which for the first time in my life I found, or whether it came from my son taking my text at 3:00 in the morning, or Stacy working her ass off, but taking the time to put down what she was doing and talk to me and talk me off a ledge more times than I can count. Or whether it was Joe and Eric and MB coming here and before practicing, just shutting up and listening to me for a while. They were just present, not offering advice, not offering anything but love and support. And that's what David was looking for when he wrote Psalm 40. Another one is he brought me up out of the pit. And that's not a metal pit. He wasn't down in the pit. It's David. He doesn't pretend that the pit doesn't exist. He names it. Faith isn't denying that pit. We all know we fall into a pit. We all end up in a pit. And faith is not denying that you're in that pit. Faith is believing that you won't stay there forever. And that line, that punched me in the gut this year because I knew that the pit was real. I was in the pit. I am still in the pit, clawing my way out little by little. Sometimes I was walking somewhere today with my daughter at church today, and I felt like I had it all together. I looked good. I had my daughter. I was in a place that I'm happy now. I was listening to Reverend Joy, who I truly adore. And I just felt like, wow, I kind of got it going right now. And then I realized I'm not paying my fucking bills right. I'm fucking driving an $800 car. I'm getting a divorce later this month. I've still got stuff going on legally that I can't even talk about. And yet, how in the hell could I feel that I had anything going on? Because I had faith that I'm not going to be here forever. And as I'm clawing out, I find little paths and little steps where I step and I go, okay, cool, boom, right? I don't have any money coming in right now. I'm broke, but I'm paying my bills somehow, barely, but I'm paying them. And in a couple months, that's going to change. I know that. And I have faith that I'm not going to stay in this situation forever. And I know that climbing out of the pit is going to take me a while. Bono says, I will sing a new song. And that becomes the next stanza. And he is talking about David and his ties to songwriting. David didn't escape pain. He turned it into music. David was one of our first, most famous songwriters that there was. And that's exactly why Louder Than My Demons even exists. I don't write songs to avoid pain. I write songs to survive it. Whether you like my songs or not is irrelevant to me. What they do for me is what's relevant, right? I'm not going to write, I wrote 90 some songs last year. Those 90 songs are not all great. Those 90 songs are not all finished. I came out of that with about 10 super solid songs so far and another 80 to sift through and figure out what they're going to do and where they're going to fit. So I don't write the songs so that people are going to listen to them and go, oh, wow, that's fucking awesome. Yeah, I want that to happen, right? Redline, they're going to find that out. Some of the other songs I've written, they're going to find that out, that I want people to love these songs. But that's not why I do it. I do it because I need it to survive. Music is part of my 5S's because it's part of my survival. Now, YouTube didn't dress this song up. They always do simple progressions and riffs, right? We know that their key, or their whole key is taking one chord, a D, playing it a little bit differently, adding some cool effects, adding that delay that's made Edge famous, and writing a song that is not intricate but sounds intricate. They didn't do that on this one. They left it raw. As a matter of fact, Edge plays bass when they do it live. I don't know if he did it on the album. I didn't look into that part, but I know when they do it live, Edge plays bass on that. And they just left this song raw, repetitive. It's 2 fucking chords. It's 2 chords. I love it. It's beautiful. It's the same 2 chords that so many 80s rock ballads used as well. I had to fight myself to not play Every Rose Has Its Thorn because it's the same basic progression. And there's some cool stuff that they overlaid on it, but they didn't get carried away with this because when you're waiting, that repetition feels natural. And this year, it felt to me that I was in this unresolved, quiet, repetitive state constantly. But somehow it felt honest. Now, David wrote Psalm 40 while waiting. You too turned it into a song you can sing together. And this year, that song reminded me that waiting doesn't mean you're lost. Sometimes it just means that you're being rebuilt. And the thing about this song is it isn't a victory song, it's a survival song. And that's why it mattered to me this year. This song, when I found it and dug into what it meant. Now, I've heard this song before. I've watched a lot of YouTube live concerts on TV. I'm going to go someday, but I haven't got to go yet. But I watched them end their concerts with this song, and it's so powerful and so simple and so emotive. And the people in the crowd are singing it with all their heart. They're giving everything they got into this song that U2 put everything they had into. And David, who wrote it originally, put everything he had into it. And so this song just meant a lot to me this year. I was going to try and get my friend Nicole to sing this song with me. Nicole has a great voice, and we work really well together. And she's actually going to help me on my country album that is still in the works. And she's going to be my main harmonist on that. And I'm looking forward to working with her on that. And I was looking forward to working with her on this, and then she got sick and she wasn't able to sing. And she was shown this song by learning to work on this song. She was said, hey, you got to be patient. It's not time right now. Let Josie go do this song by himself. And yeah, it's not going to be perfect. And yeah, it's going to be raw. And yeah, it's going to be rough. Because Josie's voice is raw and rough and unfinished and unsettled. And you're going to be patient. You're going to wait. And then when Josie's going to release it as a single, then you can go in and you're going to record it in the studio with him. This is the song that I'm using for this episode this week. I hope you guys like it. We all know I'm not the greatest singer in the world. I've got a voice that's unique and has my strength. This song does not have any of the things that I call my strengths. There's no aggression. There's no roughness. I added what I could do to it, but also I tried to do it justice by hitting the parts that I felt were the most emotionally based parts, hitting that the way that Bono did. Now, people who are true U2 fans may look at this and go, oh, that's fucking terrible. And you guys may look at this and say it's terrible, but to me, I'm pretty proud of it and what I've worked out. And so I'm going to go do that for you right now. And I hope that you guys like it. Thank you. Okay, here we go with my version of U2's song 40. waited patiently for the Lord. He inclined and heard my cry. He lifted me up out of the pit, out of the miry clay. I will sing, sing a new song. I will sing, sing a new song. How long to sing this song? How long must we sing this song? How long? How long? How long? How long to sing this song? You set my feet upon a rock. You made my footsteps firm. Many will see and hear. I will sing, sing a new song. I will sing, sing a new song. How long to sing this song? How long must we sing this song? How long to sing this song? How long? How long? How long? How long to sing this song? I will sing, sing a new song. I will sing, sing a new song. How long to sing this song? How long must we sing this song? How long? How long? How long? How long to sing this song? Okay, that's my version of the U2 song 40, which is written in part because of David's 40th song. And I really like that song. I didn't really even know much about it before. I know they close every set out with that song, and I think it's really powerful when they do that. And I've really looked into it a lot lately. I really love the song. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you. We know we can do it. Now listen, David wasn't confused. He was complex. He was a worshiper and he was a warrior. He was a songwriter and a fighter. He didn't worship to escape the battle. He worshiped before it. David didn't wait until he was perfect to be called. He was called while he was human. And when he fell publicly and painfully, the calling didn't disappear. It got refined. This episode today isn't about being flawless, because none of us are. It's about being honest. It's about strength with restraint. It's about spirit with discipline. A crown can fall without killing the king. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Louder Than My Demons. King David's story stayed with me this year because it doesn't pretend the fall didn't happen. It shows that failure doesn't erase calling, it refines it. If this episode connected with you, sit with it. Let it work on you. Next week, episode 13 is about survival, not winning, not fixing everything, just staying alive and learning what that takes. And the week after that, episode 14 wraps up season 1. A look back, a look forward, and the close of a year that changed everything. That'll bring season 1 to an end. Season 2 begins in February. New ground, new structure, same truth. Stay loud.
Play the dead man.